Hey, what is going on, y'all? Welcome into episode 10 of Real Friends. That's right, we have hit double digits. I am your host, T-Bob Hebert. To my right, your other host, Miss Rivers Hughey.
Hi.
And the third piece of our triumvirate, Mr. Nathan Velasquez.
Hello.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode. Glad to be back. We had a great episode planned for y'all today. We watched 3 AI-based movies from 3 different time periods. We got Blade Runner. We got A.I Artificial Intelligence. We settled that was the actual full title.
We did.
A.I Artificial Intelligence, 2000. And then Ex Machina, one of my personal favorites. So we'll break these movies down and we'll rank them as we do at the end of every show. But first, my friends, what have y'all been watching lately? Let's give the floor to the most recent birthday celebrity, Mr. Nathan Velasquez. You just turned 22 last night.
I did.
Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you very much. It feels very different.
Do
different.
Do you feel very different?
No, not really.
No.
Really? No. I mean, I guess you probably, when you go to 21, you gain so much. 22 can feel like a bit of a letdown.
Yeah, a little bit, just because you realize there's a desert now of ages.
Yep.
Like, what is the next, 30 is going to be the next.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. You have reached the next big
I
mile.
made it
So let's go ahead and jump there. Congratulations to Miss Rivers Hughey, who also just celebrated her birthday. And even though this is rude, Rivers, how do you want to say
I am
how old
30. I made it through the desert. And
Well, I don't know if that's the thing. I don't know what it's
made
going to
it
be
through
like.
the
I don't know.
desert, and here
just
I
because
am.
you've got so many years of them being
30.
important because you get stuff, but then, that's what I meant.
Oh, yeah, sure,
Oh, man,
absolutely.
sure, whatever you
oh,
say.
Man. Yeah, I actually, I think in a month I will be turning the most worthless age, which is 29.
yeah,
It's
29.
really, 29 isn't even a satisfactory number. 28, you get the evens, it adds up to 10. I find 26 interesting. 27 is 9 divided by 3, so I think that's got a nice little ring to it.
I am
Or
kind of looking
it's
forward to that.
3 times 9, I should say. So I think that's a little, 29, I can't find anything redeeming about it, really.
30 feels pretty much like 29, so.
Hey, at least you're a numerical palindrome now. You're spelled the same.
Oh, yeah, that's
forwards
true.
and backwards.
I guess I haven't had one of those in
We really took a
11
left
years.
turn here.
Yep. So happy birthday to 2 of the 3 members of the panel. Now, Nathan, what have you been watching? I know you've been to the movies quite a bit.
Yesterday, I saw Phantom Thread for the second time, which is
excellent.
very good. It's Daniel Day-Lewis's last movie, and it's kind of being billed as his last movie. But the two, I had never seen these actresses before. The actress that plays the love interest and his sister, I would say, are better than he is.
Oh, really?
Whoa.
It's definitely.
Wow.
Oh, yes. I'm not just Daniel Day-Lewis is
Obviously.
still mesmerizing, but it's a painful watch just because it feels very real whenever their relationship hits the rocks. It does it in a way that I don't recall a movie doing.
And that all sounds spot on to the only article that I've ever read about Phantom Thread, which was an interview with Daniel Day-Lewis talking about why he retired or why he was stopping acting. And he talked about, during the filming of this movie, somewhere along the line, the sadness moved in and came to stay.
Yeah,
And he's just infected with sadness now.
It's a
and
nice
just can't-
Daniel
can't-
Day-Lewis
just can't-
voice.
I don't know.
he's usually done a lot of really big, cartoonish, mean guys, but this one is heartbreaking. It's a heartbreaking role.
Me and the wife are planning on seeing it. I cannot wait. Are you going to go see it, Rivers?
Maybe.
Maybe not. What have you been? Anything else, Nathan? Sorry, before we
No.
move on.
I saw I, Tonya yesterday as well, which is fun. It's a lot of fun.
What is
if
that?
you want to go. I, Tonya, about Tonya Harding.
Oh,
with
yeah, I
Margot
want to see
Robbie.
that.
I think she's probably going to be up for an Oscar
I
as
love
well
Margot
as,
Robbie.
Yeah, she's great. She's really good. The only thing I wasn't a big fan of is that the thing about Tonya Harding is she does this triple axel, which apparently she was able to do it, and there are only 2 people currently racing or skating that are able to do it. So Margot Robbie couldn't do that.
Right.
So her face, you can tell, is CGI'd whenever
Oh,
she's
no way.
skating.
It's like
No
that
way.
special. Like
Yeah.
that bad that you bring it up.
Yeah,
That's how
it's
much
like
it stands
yeah.
out.
I was looking around at the other people in the theater, and it was kind of like, that's not just me, right? Like that looks bad.
That's
That's
not
the
just
only thing, though. It's a lot of fun.
Rivers, you been watching anything the last couple weeks?
I have actually. I shifted television
Not The
shows.
Office?
I'm not The Office. I am
New
still
Girl.
watching
She
New
did
Girl.
New
I am
Girl.
still
Oh, yeah,
watching
that's
New Girl. But I'm also finally joined everyone else and started watching Black Mirror.
Nice.
How worried are you about the future of the human race?
I am okay.
Oh, wow. Okay, you came out of it better than most then.
No,
Wait, so
but
where
I
are
haven't-
you in
yeah,
your Black
I haven't
Mirror
finished.
journeys?
I am just in season 2. So,
I'm kind of jealous.
I know, me too. You have so much goodness.
yeah,
ahead
I
of you.
know. That's what I hear. So I've enjoyed it.
But you're
I was a
taking
little touch
your
and
time?
go. Yeah, I'm taking my time. It's a little touch and go with the with the first episode. I don't want to ruin it for anyone.
Which
but-
came out in 2011,
Yeah.
I believe.
I didn't realize how long that show had been on.
Yeah, well, so apparently, and I could be completely wrong about this, so I apologize to anybody who's listening who knows better, but as I think I know it, it went on the BBC, and then maybe it went away for a bit, but when Netflix, when it got popular on Netflix, then it kind of got re-picked up, and
Okay.
Netflix started making new ones. I'm not 100%
Yeah,
sure.
well,
I'm
I
not
wondered
sure,
because
but
I didn't
think so.
I didn't know where it started. So I saw that it was 2011, and in my mind, I thought, wow, if this was a Netflix show in 2011, this had to have been one of the original.
So I think it was made by BBC.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
I
then later
think-
it was picked up by Netflix.
I think there was like a 3-year gap just
Yes.
because Netflix bought it, and so that kind of threw a wrench.
Well, and
in
I thought
the
it was
creativity
strange.
a
So it's
little.
like so there's 4 seasons currently.
Yeah.
And the episodes are 4, 6, 6, 8, I think.
Have you gotten to a Christmas episode?
No.
Yet? Have you? Okay. All right.
No.
No,
I took
I-
a little bit of a break, so I'm going to have to like dive back in. But
Yeah, and for those who don't know, Sci-Fi anthology, the elevator pitch is like a kind of modern day Twilight Zone type of deal. But it
kind of felt very
so good.
appropriate as far as like what we're watching this week. Like
Yes.
it felt very.
I did think it was interesting when you texted about how there's no internet in Blade Runner, how that's like how they saw the future.
Yep.
And like Black Mirror is pretty much what we have now is what we see the future of. Like we don't know what we're probably
Right,
missing.
And
right.
how
It's
different
a-
we'll be. Now, one thing about Black Mirror though is they keep it generally to near future, to where they are a lot of times just taking tech that is in the concept stage, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
That the futurist thinkers are saying like this is the direction things are going, and so I think that creates all these terrifying, very dark experiments. But yeah, good luck. It's gonna be.
Yes, I'm excited.
It just gets.
It's
Better, and better.
it's much different than The Office and New Girl. So
You can't watch it while
slightly
doing house
different
shifting,
chores.
taking a
tonally.
shift.
I started watching. Or sorry, are you done?
Yes,
Is that
I'm
everything?
done.
Okay. I started watching the end of the effing world.
Oh
a
yeah,
Netflix show.
I heard it's really
A
good.
couple little British kids.
Uh-huh.
It is pretty good. It is. It's pretty damn funny. It's almost too kind of in love with being cool at times. Like you like soundtracks. This is like dripping, oozing with indie music. It's almost like indie
Super into
music
that.
porn at times. Like
Super into
to
that.
the point where I'm like, this might be a bit gratuitous, but it's.
I think
but I've enjoyed it on the whole. Like
it
I want to keep watching.
Felt
it.
like someone who really likes Quentin Tarantino soundtracks a little bit and does a lot of blood stuff with a twangy guitar going on.
Yeah.
Blood
It's
stuff
fun.
and twingy
It's
guitar.
fun.
But it is fun. That's the thing. It's funny, and it's kept me interested, and I continue to watch. That's been good. And then the movie that I watched randomly, very much on a whim. Don't know really how we even ended up there, but it's a movie that I tried watching when I was younger, and I did not understand it at all, and that is Sideways.
Oh
You seen
yeah,
Sideways with Paul Giamatti?
such a
and
good
what's his name?
movie.
Oh, it's awesome, dude. It's
Oh,
hilarious.
such a good movie.
I bug my mom all the time because she despises that movie. That's like her least favorite
Really?
movie of all time, and I love it.
Wait, why?
She hates the mopiness of Paul Giamatti.
I mean,
yeah.
he's hard to.
Yeah.
He gives me anxiety. His anxiety gives me like secondhand anxiety.
What's the other guy's name? I just know he's Lowell on Wings.
Thomas
don't
Hayden
know his
Church.
name.
Yes,
Yeah.
that guy.
Joe like that one. Oh, and I should have said we got Joe Rodriguez behind the glass as always.
And-
Excellent productorial work.
And Katie Rodriguez.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Thank
Tag
you to
team,
the
back again.
Team Rodriguez.
Actually, you know what?
being back.
I did watch something else. You said Stars earlier, and I remembered The White Princess, which is really interesting.
What is the White Princess?
It
never heard of
is
it.
the story of Henry VII and how he took the throne, how the Tudors took the throne from the Yorks,
Oh wow.
Huh.
which seems very like,
This is like right up my alley.
yeah,
This
your
sounds
deal.
awesome.
Yeah. And it's
Now the only thing I see, I don't know a ton of British history. I know so Henry VIII was the guy who killed all of his
Yes, so
wives.
that's their
and broke
son.
off from the Catholic Church.
that's their son.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
okay.
so it's and it's Elizabeth York who marries Henry VII, and it's really she was in love with the York King, and then she ended up marrying.
Oh man. So what is
Henry
this
VII.
on? Where'd you find this?
It's on Stars, but you can watch it other places. And it's,
Okay.
you know,
White
you can stream-
Princess?
The White Princess, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, so Sideways, absolutely recommend it. If you haven't seen it, it's very funny. It's definitely not a kid's movie. I didn't get it at all. I did not get it at
How
all.
old
when I
were
watched
you
it.
when
I was
you
probably
watched
like
it?
13,
Well, the thing is,
so I thought I got it.
I saw that when I was a kid as well, and that was when I saw it the first time. It was just a boring movie that was on.
It was very boring.
about old guys going to drink wine and
You just don't appreciate any of the kind of the nuance in it when you're a kid. Like
it's
just
so
the
much fun. Like
awkwardness.
just watching it sometimes just through your eyes, like through your fingers. Like oh no.
Oh yeah, no, you can't, like I think only once in my life have I had like what I think people call like true social anxiety, where I was very much in my own head and judging every little thing that I did, and like basically how I felt that night is almost how Paul Giamatti makes me feel throughout
The entire movie.
film. But you're laughing along the way, so it's kind of fun. So that's what we've been watching lately. Now, I'm excited. It is time to dive in. Since basically here in 2018 now, we are only a couple years away from the robot revolution and artificial intelligence. We chose to do AI movies this week, and we really covered the gamut, 3 different time periods. We're talking about, what is Blade Runner, early 80s?
It's 81, I think.
81?
82.
Oh,
82.
82.
Okay. And then you got AI, which is like 2000?
And
2001, yeah.
2001, and then Ex Machina, which just came out a couple of years ago. So it's kind of an evolving view of artificial intelligence. But let's start with Blade Runner. Mr. Velasquez, can you give us some background information on our Blade Runner movie?
Yeah, so Blade Runner 1982, and specifically we're doing the final cut, which technically came out about 4 years ago. That's the newest version of like the 7 versions.
Yeah, I guess for those who don't know, there's like 8 different versions.
I had no idea.
The consensus seems to be that the final cut is critically the best one, but even if that's not your thing, isn't it the version that Ridley Scott basically approves of?
Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, it's mainly structural differences, not like special effects differences. Funnily enough, this is considered the snappier version. I know you were saying that this is like 20 minutes shorter than the original.
Yeah. So and look, I think you always want to watch the one that where I want to see the director's true vision over anything else. So Final Cut, that's one we watched. Nathan, lay out just the basic plot.
Yeah. So this is kind of a hard-boiled noir 40s type of story, met at a crossroads of sci-fi, philosophical questions, and technology. It's set in a dystopia, Los Angeles, in 2019, which would be 37 years in the future of when it came out. The Tyrell Corporation has found a way to create something called replicants, which are pretty much machines that operate exactly like humans, except as far as their emotions go.
Yeah.
They don't have the emotional core, they say, that humans have. And 4 replicants from an off-world colony have escaped. Nexus 6 replicants, which are very, very dangerous, and they're illegal.
Yeah.
So they've come to find Tyrell, their creator, to give themselves more life, and a Blade Runner is pretty much someone who hunts for a replicant. Harrison Ford is the Blade Runner who's tasked to capture them and retire them.
Yeah.
And
retire.
Killed it.
Yes,
Kill
yes. And he, along the way, runs
Therein
into...
lies the entire basis of this episode,
Yeah.
right? Well, what is life? What is consciousness?
And that's something I
You
would like...
retire them. Are you killing them?
Ex Machina talked about like that singularity, like the one thing, and I think each of these movies has a different one thing that identifies what an AI is.
Oh, yeah. I
But
agree with
then
that.
he meets Rachel, who kind of makes us question: are these replicants more human than human? What the movie says.
Yeah. And I think the bad guy actually does a good job of reinforcing that. And
he's
the
a good bad guy.
in the final scene, he is a good bad guy. He's insane. So I guess I'll start with you then, Nathan. What was something that you enjoyed about Blade Runner?
Wait, really quick.
sorry. Go ahead.
Y'all had seen the movie before?
I had not. I had
Okay.
seen some other version in college, and I remember thinking it was really boring, and I slept during it, and so I just don't remember.
Because I had
thing.
not seen it either, so I just
had
wasn't
seen-
sure where.
Yeah, I had seen the voiceover, like first version.
Okay.
And I had been a fan of it. I think I'd never seen this version. I think this.
Okay,
is
so this is
lot
the first time
better.
we'd all seen this version.
Yeah.
Like, I know I've watched it, but I literally just,
Right.
it felt new. So
Okay,
for
okay.
all intents and purposes,
Got it.
this was my first.
Well, I mean, there's tons of stuff that I really like. The 2 biggest things really are, and I know really every other episode this comes up, but the world building after about 3 minutes
Oh, man, it's so good.
and it especially considering that up until the mid 80s there really wasn't like this type of science fiction is most science fiction that we get, but this was kind of new, this seedy city
Near
type,
future.
yeah, but
kind of
feels like it was a future kind of, well, what is that thing they call cyberpunk? A little bit
very
of cyberpunk.
cyber. No,
Yes.
I would say very cyber. Now,
Yeah.
that's true. I could be misunderstanding the cyberpunk genre, but this is what I think of when cyberpunk, when
Yeah.
you have like cultures that are mashed together in weird ways with the Chinese and the U.S. and then all the neon lights, and it's kind of garish, but it's dark and it's huge. Yeah, very cyberpunk.
I just love everything from the way that the soundtrack to the colors to the special effects, which are breathtaking within
So good.
the first, when you see the eye and the flames coming up, like you're right there, Los Angeles, 35 years from
good.
now.
Those miniatures that they use for the city of LA, I think hold up very well. I love the use of miniatures. I think it's some of the best stuff in movies, and they do a really good job of breathing life into LA. I mean, how about the set design?
So it's LA in 2019.
It's LA in next year.
Next year.
Yeah, next year. That's what LA will look like. They got a lot of construction.
So I've got to get out
build
there
that
quick
giant
before.
Tyrell pyramid
Right.
in the middle of the city.
And I love the way that it looks like the world has just, like, it's almost gone. Like the world, it feels like it's almost done.
Oh yeah, well, and you see advertisements for Off-World constantly.
Yeah.
You can tell
Right.
it gives the world, the planet Earth is very claustrophobic, downtrodden, overpacked, overly dense. Like everybody, you have the oligarchy, the super ultra rich, and then you have everybody else, and the super rich are all
Which I think is actually,
they're abandoning the ship.
I think that's interesting because not with just this movie, but a lot of movies that portray the future, I feel you always get that feeling that they're like, man, there's going to be way too many of us.
Yeah.
It's going to be way too crowded. But then we always get to the place where they thought we were going to be, and we're still not there.
So where that gets interesting, though, and to lean on my college studies here a bit.
The general studies degree.
General studies.
Is there a
degree.
lot to lean on?
Within that general studies degree, I took a class called demography, which is the study of populations, right? And the only thing that stuck with me from that class is how, as a population, we double, and this thing called the doubling rate. I think that's what it's called. And basically, what it is if we start with this amount of people, and it takes 20 years to double, because of everybody you gained, the next time it only takes 10 years to double.
Yeah.
And then 5, and then 2.5.
What about all
and
the
then
people
2,
dying
and then 1.
and, like-
We're still growing at a rate that exceeds that. So the thing is, so we are constantly hurtling
But
towards
it
this
seems
idea
like we're
of
not
overpopulation.
getting there as quickly as people who make films think we're going to.
Well, no, and I don't think that's another thing. I don't think necessarily whenever they say 2019 that they're saying this will be what it is like then, as
Right.
opposed to just kind of
Just creating a world.
Yeah, it's
that
kind
is
of
in
like more like what the
2019.
fears of people in the 80s were of what the future would be.
Yeah.
Necessarily.
Yeah, like what? Well, yeah, it's going to the, and that is true. That's why this movie is interesting. It's kind of a time capsule for what they could kind of see the darkest of corporate futures looking like, just like populations exploded, corporations rule the
Right.
world. But yeah, but I do think the idea of overpopulation is actually something that does freak me out.
Yeah.
Because it just, I mean, there's
It is weird that, like, remember 5 years ago
There's
we
no
were saying
stopping
6
it.
billion people. Now we say 7 billion people. Like, it's going to be 8 billion in just a few years.
and then it'll take only half the time that it
And
took
then
to
it'll be
get to
10 billion,
8
and then it'll be so
Yeah.
crowded.
It'll only take half the time to get to 16. Than
We'll
it
be
to
dead.
8.
It'll be fine.
So it's yeah. Who knows, right? But this is definitely that dark future where everything's overpopulated. Going back to cyberpunk thing, one of my favorite parts of this movie. I mentioned the set design.
Steampunk, that's it. I forgot.
So it has. See, I think it's more cyberpunk than steampunk. Steampunk's more like Victorian,
Okay.
clockwork, brass, wood.
maybe.
This is like this is a little more electronic,
Yeah.
right? A little more neon.
Okay, well, my mistake was well said then.
Yes, absolutely. But the I loved the scientist that worked on the eyeballs in his like frozen factory.
That was so
He felt
scary.
so
with
random
his
to
crazy
me.
suit and his like all his like goggles on his head and working in this laboratory, and then the toy maker that lives in this giant abandoned
Incredibly
building.
creepy young old man.
Yes, and he makes these these AI like monsters or creations that hang
So
out with him alone.
lonely.
I know, and so, but that all goes to what Nathan talked about, which is that world building. Ridley Scott absolutely nails this the same way that he nails it in the original Alien. The soundtrack is excellent. Future LA, I'm in love with, and it goes to that weird thing where they have flying cars, yet they don't have anything resembling an internet.
It's like so. The TVs is the thing that tripped me out the
Yes.
most. It's like these turn dial televisions, and they're small and bad. And I mean, it's like they couldn't imagine any better version of that television.
Isn't that weird how we limit, and when we try to look into the future, we limit ourselves in ways.
I mean, we can't imagine what doesn't exist.
Exactly,
Well,
right?
kind
So
of
we limit ourselves in ways.
But we can also imagine flying cars. Those don't exist. Like, why can we?
Well,
why
flying
are there
cars
some
are-
things that we can imagine happening and some?
Okay, well
that
then
we can't?
right now, imagine what the next internet type of phenomenon is going to be.
I would
Like
imagine
people in
it
the
would be-
80s would imagine what the internet was then. Like it's kind of tough.
But they didn't
No,
even
it's
try to
impossible.
imagine. But I feel like they didn't even try to imagine it.
I think that it's hard. I think that with the benefit of hindsight, you look back and you say, oh, well, like, of course this was always going to happen. Like, of course we would be able to readily share information all over at a moment. I mean, they already had cell phones. They had, or not cell phones, but they had telephones. They had radios, stuff like that. But I think that that's what makes inventions like the internet so impactful is that you really can't see it coming. Like, why does someone like Steve Jobs, why is he so visionary? Because he actually was one of the few who could like see beyond the veil and see, okay, this computer is going to change the world. And then he makes an iPhone that now, an iPhone that eventually leads to Ex Machina, which leads to AI. But okay, so so I think that.
But we'll always have the anticipation of flying cars.
Flying,
that will
well, flying,
always
so
be
flying
around.
cars and overpopulation are going to always be in any film that portrays the future.
Yes, absolutely.
Always.
As they should be.
Eventually, I cannot wait to be overpopulated and have flying cars,
Well,
but
see,
like
that's
we're
the-
never going to
look
get there. I
Look
feel
at
like.
India. When you see some of the images coming out of India and on the train, the overpopulation, like, oh man, that's kind of the dystopian future already arrived here
Is
on
this
Earth.
just you're kind of pissed that you don't have a flying car? Like
I don't
And
know.
she
I
sounds a little
I mean, it would be-
personally
I
upset.
don't get what the
It would be
upsetness
fantastic
is.
to have. No, I guess I just was thinking about that when I was watching it, seeing the flying cars, but then also seeing the really like shitty TVs.
Yeah, no,
Like-
it's great. Well, it just reinforces, like I said, like we don't know the future. So then the real interesting question becomes exactly what you just said, which is, what is the next giant thing that we don't realize that is going to fundamentally change how we exist? And so that's why it's fascinating is that you do see how limited, like Blade Runner reinforces how limited we can be in scope at times, in that they could see, eventually we're going to have human robots, we're going to have flying cars, we're going to have all this crazy stuff, but we're still going to have people reading newspapers in the background, and we're going to have these old rotary TVs.
We also don't have robots that force us to question whether or not they have souls.
That
or
we
not.
know of.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that we know of.
right.
I was looking
Am
at
I
my
a robot? Maybe.
I was looking at my toaster a little side-eyed this morning, a little freaked out about it.
It makes me look at all these movies make me look at my cell phone just like The Enemy, just like, oh my God. Are you happy you're going to replace me eventually, you bastard?
Agree. I thought the set was really, really beautiful, and I'm not super into world building, but I thought it was cool. But I found it very slow moving.
It is.
I found it boring. I was so ready for just something to happen. And then I wondered, the reason I asked if you guys had seen it before is because I wondered if, so I'm sure in 82 when this movie came out, it was revolutionary. And like, it's probably seemed really cool. And so people kind of fell in love with it. Maybe they didn't, whatever. And but
It's
then now
oozing.
it's
It's
but now
dripping
it's
with
got this
style.
but now it's got this cult following. So I wonder if people really like it or they just like the idea of it because it has this cult following. And I wasn't part of that because I had never seen it. And so I was going into it with this like I had no idea what the movie was really supposed to be about. Like I had nothing.
Do you feel?
Man, I found it so boring.
Do you find when you say
It's slow,
that
it's
it's
so
when you say
boring.
that it's slow and you say that it's boring, do those usually feel one and the same with you? Like, because
No,
I know some.
not necessarily.
Okay.
I think that movies can be slow moving, but not be necessarily boring.
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
I think
I thought this one was both.
Yeah,
Okay.
you thought this.
All
No,
right.
but I think that's an important.
Yeah, no, for sure.
That's an
I-
important
no one really
distinction
says
to
the movie
land
was
on.
fast.
Like-
or
You're
too
right.
fast.
Yeah.
Well, I've
yeah,
seen
things
some
can
movies
happen
in
too
movies
fast.
that go too
Well, yeah, they
fast.
can, but people slow. It was slow. That's,
No, but that's an important distinction. Do you think it's because it is slow paced? Like
It
I would
is,
agree
it
with
is.
it slow, but for me, I tend to.
I'd put that on the positives for me. I like how much time it takes, and I because it's not really at least I didn't feel like there's not much plot, but it is big on story.
So that is okay. Now that's interesting because you're gonna have to explain that because my big takeaway is that one of the things that I did find interesting that I really liked is that there is a complete lack of a plot. They don't over explain character emotions. They don't really. But where I kind of like that is that led me to thinking about this movie a lot more afterwards because it was very much here's what happened. You kind of draw your own conclusions
which-
The
about what these
ambiguity about
interactions
it,
mean.
I think, is what makes
I
it.
think
I
you
think it's a
guys would be
strength.
really great about because you're super into it. But like, let's just say your average Joe Schmo person who's just going to a movie to enjoy a movie and wants to watch a movie and like leave the movie and have enjoyed it. Like, who
point.
doesn't care to go home and like really think about the movie? Those people I feel like, are going to watch this movie and be like, this is boring.
It's a fair point. It does ooze with style, but
Probably. No, I think that, some people don't like science fiction. I think if you don't like science fiction, then don't watch this movie.
But see, I
'cause
like
this
science
is-
fiction.
Do you though?
I do. I love the other movies.
See,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know.
no.
I think Rivers raises a good point in that there will be people who
just want to go to the movie, enjoy the plot, and then go home and leave and not think about
Blade Runner is not
Oh,
going
yeah,
to be
this
everybody's
requires
cup
that.
of tea, and
Yeah.
especially because at times that you could almost think like, okay, they're setting up to be this kind of like action movie. There's Harrison Ford. He's going to be like this like go get him type of guy, and he's really not. He's kind of a piece of like I don't like Harrison
Yeah.
Ford that much in this
No.
movie. He's just somebody who has a job to do, and so he does it. But then his job raises all kind of bad questions. So no, I could definitely understand how people could be turned off by this movie. But I'm with you, Nathan. For me personally, the pacing of it definitely ended up being a strength and ended up working for me. And really, it's because I was bought hook, line, and sinker by the world and by the setup,
Right.
which
Which
always
I did.
sucks
I
me
agree
up.
with you guys. I think it was beautiful and I think it was well done.
But you're saying that you
Visually,
think
it was
that
nice.
Yeah, it was, and yeah, I agree that sometimes there's some movies where that kind of becomes everything for some people, and then you can't get it to like there's
Yeah.
no meat, or,
Yeah.
there's no bones on it.
Yes.
But no, I'm sorry. I think I might have interrupted you. Were you gonna say?
No. We're fine. No, I just, I guess if a part of the movie that I want to talk about, because I don't really exactly know how I would interpret it. And that's one thing we interpret, like this is all an interpret however you want. When Harrison Ford basically rapes that AI robot.
I did wonder about
How are we supposed to, and maybe we're not supposed to feel into it. Maybe it's like literally saying like you feel about how, but like I don't understand the leap from why after he did that, why then suddenly he's in love with, or like he's sympathetic to AI, but then and then she likes him. Like it didn't feel like there should have been any reason that they would have wanted to be
that
together.
was strange to me. I mean, I liked them together because the romance part of a movie. I enjoy that, but they felt strange to me. Like I wanted them to get together, but the way they ended up together felt.
Where was the motivation for him to like her and her to like him
Yes.
after because
It was it maybe the interview. I mean, because which we didn't get to see the whole interview when he was sitting
Yeah.
there asking her all those questions to figure out if she was an AI. I mean, they said that he got to over 100 questions, so maybe it was like in that process.
Yeah, I feel like it's time. I mean, I guess there's no real way you could speak where they're. I mean, I thought I saw it in the way that they looked at each other in the first scene, in the way that she would do her hair for him, in the way that he would. I guess I didn't see that as much as a rape, as much as kind of it was forceful. Like,
it was forceful,
Yeah.
but to me,
The
I
Washington
guess,
Post might write an article about
I
it.
guess my takeaway on it was that to me it felt like him asserting his humanity over something that was inhuman.
Yeah.
Like it didn't feel like one of those old romantic like.
But you don't
No,
feel like
I
she could have.
can't. Like in Baby It's Cold Outside, the Christmas song. That girl wants to actually stay in that song. She's being coy, right? She's being flirt. I know people make a lot of jokes about the lyrics in that song, whatever.
Yeah.
To me, I didn't get that feeling.
So you didn't think that she wanted to be with him? I
So
thought.
okay, so you thought that
I
she
thought
did
she
want
did.
to be with
It
him.
didn't
Okay.
feel-
So
I
then,
thought so. I thought she just
Didn't
kind of
feel
wanted a
rapey
little
to
bit
me.
of a.
It felt
this-
aggressive.
macho.
But this
Yeah.
goes back to exactly what we were just discussing, which is the interesting part of this movie. It becomes a foil for our own kind of interpretations and beliefs. Because to me, that felt like him in a low moment, actually asserting himself as, "No, I'm human. I'm horny right now, and you're a robot, and I'm going to take advantage of this situation." And maybe, and I don't even know if the movie intended it that way, but that's
Right.
how I felt about it. So that was a bit odd to me.
Right.
I guess back to the whole how it's good world building and it looks great and how much does that influence how much you like it. I think just as interesting is the ideas that it goes through and the way that the pacing, I think, helps talk about that. Like for someone like, what does it mean for Rachel? Is she really just a robot or is she
Yeah.
more than that? And particularly the first time that he tests her, he can't really tell. And she's actually kind of throwing back all of the questions at him in a way like, and
you can see it kind of upsets him a little bit.
Yeah.
he
What
gets
ends
that
up
rough.
happening I didn't understand what ended up happening there at the end of the interview that led him to believe that she was AI, or what happened with the screen?
I think
the
that
screen,
was like the confirmation.
Also, did y'all know
that it was
the eyes is also if you have the orange eyes,
Yes.
if you have an AI, then
even though it looked like Ford had the orange
that was
eyes
another
for
thing that we need
1
to,
second in that movie.
Do y'all think that he is a replicant?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, I hadn't even considered that.
See, this is another
That would be
huge
way more
thing
interesting to me.
about this.
It
Is
might
another
be.
that's the ambiguity about the like the screenwriters say that they like the ambiguity and don't want to answer it. Ridley Scott said that he made this version so that it became. I guess it's funny then that you didn't. He wanted that to be a bigger part of it.
Yeah.
I didn't
that-
consider that, but that would have made it a way more
that was
interesting
what the
for
horse
me.
was about mainly, and
Well-
I loved everything with the horse and what that was symbolizing about them having the same dream. It was very cool.
Oh, wait. So when did I don't remember? So the robot had a dream about a unicorn as well.
Yeah, she had talked about it at some point. She
Oh,
had
okay. I
mentioned
didn't
it.
hear that either.
So, well, that is something that Caitlin, my wife, when we were watching, she asked about. She was like, I wonder if Harrison Ford's a replicant. And then there's the one line about have you tested yourself? There's one scene with him and the female replicant where her eyes are obviously lit up orange, and I swear that his kind of look like they're lit up orange. So, yeah, I don't know. But that's
what I
where,
love about it,
Well, that's
the
where
not
it's
knowing.
effective. Exactly. Is that because you are questioning, like the movie succeeds in answering this question of, or at least making you think about what this question of what is consciousness when you can't readily discern between, okay, who are the actual human characters here
Yeah.
and who are the actual robots.
And
right?
does it make much of a difference? Because do they not? Whatever humanity is, it seems like both sides have it. Like
Yes,
it seems
yes,
like
no, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
The ability, and maybe, I mean, that's the question all these wrestles with. Where is that point where you tip over into consciousness? Is
Right.
it when you fear your own death? Is it when you can have emotions for others? For Blade Runner, it was giving them emotions by implanting memories, basically. So they had these anchor points
Or really
that
just
they
her,
could pull
though.
from. I thought all of those all of the
What
Nexus
was-
6
I thought
robots.
it was just her that they had planted memories
Well,
in.
I think they gave it to others because there was that point wherever he told her what her memory was.
Yeah, but that's what I'm
And-
saying is that they were testing all that out on her.
I thought that they had both.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, because
I think
Tyrell was talking about how
The other ones don't have memories. They're like,
I thought that they found pictures of I thought all the Nexus 6 ones had memories.
I don't remember.
I know they found the pictures. I know what you're talking about,
So-
but I think that was planted just so that they
Yeah.
thought that he was human.
Well, so to that point, then, if
That's
it is
also
the
what
case,
we don't know because is he one?
If that is the case, and if she's the only one who
Because she's
had
the only one that she doesn't have a life expectancy.
so if she's the only she didn't have the 4-year
At the
runoff?
end, he said that he had seen her file and that she was the
I
only
missed
one
that.
that they didn't. That's why they ran away together because she.
So she is that point of. Is that the singularity? Is that when you reach it? Whatever. She might be that point where it tips over into consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
the latest version. One thing that I found interesting. Oh, sorry. Continue.
Well, do you think that Roy Blatty? Do you think that he had it? Because he had what I thought what I guess one interpretation.
And
I
Roy,
thought
Roy is the AI who they figure out it's a replicant at the very beginning of the movie, and he kills the interviewee.
No, that's the one who fights Harrison Ford.
Roy's
at
the
end.
bad guy. Like
Okay,
main
Roy's the
bad
blonde
guy.
one.
Like, is he? Because he's driven by this desire to continue
And
living.
he
to not
obviously
die.
loves Pris, the Hannah,
Daryl Hannah.
Daryl Hannah. Oof.
Yeah, see, I think that to me they came off as also having consciousness.
Maybe
I thought
so.
so. I thought
and
so.
and
But they all knew that they were robots.
Yeah, they
did.
did.
Rachel did not.
see,
And
yeah, that's
that
true.
was like I think that was kind of what pushed her beyond, like this whole thing throughout the whole movie where they say that, it's more human than human and trying to push that as much as possible. Like she's pretty much the absolute latest model. Like she's not only a robot, she believes herself
has
to
no
be.
idea that she's a robot.
But then when she found out she was a robot, she still wanted to keep living.
Yes.
So I mean, I think that's important because consciousness does not mean human. Consciousness is something outside of
Right.
humanity. It doesn't have to be a human. So one where I thought they really drove home that point of like what does it mean to be alive? I think that the ability to show mercy or empathy, it can be important in that regard. And
Which is what
The
Roy does at the end.
exactly the fact that Harrison Ford kills, no questions asked, like he kills Snakeface without any great evidence linking her to anything, but he kills her. And that's what he's done his entire career. And then Roy, the bad guy, or should say bad guy in quotes, because like I don't know.
Yeah.
He ends up sparing Harrison Ford. Like he messes with him and he wants him to make him know what it feels like to live in fear and be constantly hunted and how wrong it is. But he chooses not to kill him.
Right.
And I think him showing that mercy kind of almost puts the replicant above the human in that test of like which of their actions was more human.
Because he actually realized
in terms
after
of what
like
we value.
4 years of life that for him to be remembered more, he should show mercy.
Now, was he an intergalactic soldier,
That's what it
basically?
sounds like. Like
'Cause
the way he described.
He
Something
basically
like that.
sounded like he had like PTSD type memories about battling on like the
And, like,
rings
killing
of
I
Saturn
people
and
didn't.
stuff.
yeah.
I didn't write
Crazy.
that quote down. That's my favorite
It's one of
line in
the
the movie.
be- oh,
Like
it's
you, I've seen
incredible.
scenes you could, and that was one thing that I liked about the world building more than just a stylistic thing. Like you never see them take a spaceship to Earth. You never see the stuff
Yeah.
he talks about. Like I've seen like galaxies collide with one another. Like
And
you
it's
believe
good that we don't
completely.
because, yes.
Because of how effective everything else.
It's good that we
around
don't
is.
see it because then when you hear somebody say it, it stands out because it's like, oh my God. Okay, final question on this before we move on because we've gone long with this one. All of these movies has a meet your maker type of scene here. And I think it's interesting because in almost every one, that meeting goes very poorly. And in this one, he kills Tyrell. I mean, what does that mean? Like, does that mean that I wonder, what is the movie, do you think, trying to imply by that? Is it just an anger? Like, yes, you gave me
Do you
life,
think
but
he
in the
would have
same
killed
way you
him?
made me aware of death?
Do you think you would have killed him had he been able to extend his life? I don't think you would have. I think he was mad that.
I don't think so. I think if anything, that probably like if he wasn't able to live more, then his life probably had more meaning for him to actually kill the person that was responsible for him having life.
So you think he would have killed him anyway?
No,
even if
I don't. I agree.
Yeah, I think that if he
you
could have
agree.
extended his life, he would have not killed him. I think he was angry because
So it could be like the
because he
most
realized
basic human motivation.
he realized he's going to die. There's nothing that he can do about it.
Well, then, and I wonder if he thinks that, is Tyrell going to just like, by killing Tyrell, is he protecting future generations
Maybe.
who would be born into consciousness only to have been deleted without,
In that
without
moment,
having a
I
say
wouldn't
in
have
the
thought
matter?
that. I wouldn't have. But then when you see him in the end, and how he doesn't kill Harrison Ford
Yeah.
and his thing, then maybe
He's more
think,
calculated.
Yes.
It would feel, he's too calculated for it to be a crime of passion. It
Yeah.
does feel more thought out when
And
he kills Tyrell.
If they are aware and they're alive, like humans are, then he would see Tyrell as this type of villain who creates life and only allows it to go for 4 years.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of like a sick god. It's
Right.
like a sick and twisted
Absolutely.
god. Ooh, nice work, y'all.
Well, the only trivia I was, I guess we've said some, but Tyrell is the bartender in The Shining.
Oh, is
He
he?
absolutely is,
Yeah.
dude.
That's so funny. Those
Coke
glasses
bottle
Tyrell
glasses,
wears,
Yeah.
oof, they're
Aggressive.
awesome.
He's good. Ooh, his offices are pretty crazy too. All right, so that is Blade Runner, 1982. Starring Harrison Ford, directed by Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott was doing good work.
Yeah, he was.
In the 80s.
I think
Oh
this
my
was
God,
right after
dude.
Alien.
Wow, I love Alien too. I know I love Alien. I don't
Not
like
Alien
Aliens.
2.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't like Alien 2 that much. All right, coming up next, we have 2001's A.I. Artificial Intelligence, directed by Steven Spielberg.
Yes, Steven Spielberg's short story by Brian Aldiss called Super Toys Dream All Summer Long, based on a treatment by Stanley Kubrick. He was supposed to make this, and he worked on it for like 6 years and then handed it over to Spielberg.
I saw Stanley Kubrick's name on there. And so
Yeah,
I
I'm on the
wondered-
executive
yeah.
producer credit, I believe.
Yeah.
And he actually...
You can feel his influence, I
Yeah.
feel like, in this movie without
really
a doubt.
can.
It's a terrifying
And
movie.
he wrote a good bit, like that list that the mother reads to David to turn him on. He wrote that list, and he also recorded all of Robin Williams' stuff years before Steven Spielberg even got this project.
Wait, Robin Williams?
He was the guy that read. He was the
Dr. No.
Dr. No that read the little.
Wow. For a
bit.
second, I thought you were getting confused with Bicentennial Man.
Oh, I've never
That
seen
was all
that.
it's on. I also watched that as a kid. I don't remember it being very good.
Well,
Okay, I did not know that. That's
Anyway,
cool.
the movie, a husband and wife have a son who's in a coma, and they go ahead and test out this new, like they've created a robot that is able to love.
Yes.
And it's called David. And the question that the movie asks, and they ask at the very beginning, is if we can create a robot that's capable of loving, but can we create a robot that can be loved? Like, are humans able to love robots as well? And David finds after the son recovers that they really don't have much love for him, at least not real love.
No.
So they abandon him, which causes David to be picked up for these flesh fairs, and this pretty much rattles on this.
It puts him on the Pinocchio's tail.
Yeah.
A created boy that wants to be real, and he will go to the ends of the earth to do so.
That's what's so sad about it. Like, we know that he's just been abandoned. That really should be the end of his relationship with that family. But this entire movie, which spans millennia, shows that he's doing everything that he can
at the end
to be turned into a real boy so that his mother will love him.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll start with the positive.
It is heartbreaking. It is. It's so sad.
So sad.
It's so sad, but it's also so hopeful just because he believes.
He does.
And it ends up, he gets a little taste of it.
I don't find it very hopeful. I do find it very sad.
Well, it's mainly
question.
sad.
Do you think that perhaps if David had been, I don't know, a little less creepy, they could have loved him?
He was not.
He was a robot.
He was not the best designed. He really, there were maybe
those other models that were going to be sent out that were in New York were probably going to maybe be a little better.
They were probably a little more realistic. Yeah,
I think that they could have loved him maybe if he had been less creepy.
He got manipulated a bit.
But that's
rule number one: if you want to be loved,
well, that's the
don't
sad
be creepy.
thing, that he did hold the quality of feeling love for someone else, but a human saw him and they saw only the flaws that a refrigerator might have, or that the new TV might have. Like, it's not 3.0, it's only 2.0.
It made me
it's
so
tough, though.
irritated.
How can you appreciate the love that you're getting from this thing if you know that it's a program love?
Well, and that's
because at that point you're just being manipulated into feelings, and then that's gonna feel weird. So like, I found it odd to take David in the first place. I think it's a terrible coping mechanism. I don't think anybody should.
How weird was it that the dad was like all in on bringing David in, and then as soon as she turned him on, he was like, ugh, I kind of hate this thing.
But maybe he realized just how much more weird it was going to be than he thought. Like I said, so I think the setup is creepy because as the owner, if you're the parent, you know that the relationship is artificial.
Right.
Like, you even went through the process of reading off the list of words, Socrates, the imprinting phase. Like, it's one of those things where
I thought that he would have imprinted on both parents.
Yeah, I don't know. They just went with the mom.
But he just imprinted on the mom.
But like, to me, it's like that would be ineffective in what they're trying to do in terms of helping these parents cope, because you're seeing how the magic trick works, right? It's not like it's not illusion. It's not tricking you.
And
like,
you had to make that.
This thing loves you because you spoke the words
and
to make it love you.
It is tough because you've got on one end these scientists who are having these big questions about, can we create a robot that can love? Can we create a robot that is as close to human as possible? And then, of course, you have to make it into a company. You have to make money. So it's like, why don't we sell this to people? And why don't we? So on one side, they want to make these godlike breakthroughs, but they still have to sell it to people.
But I thought that it was interesting too. So they create David to give, and this family gets him because they have a son who is alive, but he's had some sort of, I don't know if we ever figure out, did they ever tell us officially what happened to him? His son, Martin?
No, just a coma.
He's in a coma. Whatever.
Yeah, no, he's just
But in the end, you end up finding out that the scientist who created David because David was his son that he lost.
He's dead, yeah.
And so it was just kind of this like big circle.
Trying to fulfill that empty spot in his heart. And in a way, he does it. I mean, he creates an AI that, driven by emotion, even if the emotion is artificial, he does some pretty incredible things to end up where he does. I mean, it's a true, the same way during the whole Dr. No scene where they're talking about, they're combining, this is all kind of weird. They're like, combine fairy tale with flat fact. Like, they're kind of combining this science fiction, which a lot of times science fiction, I look at like truth because it's like kind of technology based. So that it's like the real world. So they're combining like the science fiction real world with a fairy tale of old and kind of marrying the two and trying to make that realistic.
I think I think the discussions you could have on this movie are just like a maze, just because, and I think that's what's fun about all the AI type things, because there's so much that you don't know. But the way that, I guess, like when humans make decisions, we make decisions, like thousands of decisions in an hour based on complicated neurons firing, all that type of stuff. But like with a robot, it's a lot simpler. And like humans are kind of programmed to love certain people, love certain ideals based on their upbringing. And the robots are pretty much the base, the most simple version of that.
So that's where AI becomes interesting to me, this movie AI, is because I don't really feel like it passed the point into consciousness.
Yeah.
Like Haley Joel Osment the entire time felt
Other than that, he was a little boy.
he felt very programmed. Now it was good programming, and he was able to feel fear, and he seemed to not want his own demise, which kind of speaks to consciousness. But at the same time, it's what you said, Nathan. His motivations and his decision making were so obviously driven by this very programmed and coded love that he never came off like transcending into actual
And
consciousness
the
or a person to
aliens
me.
kind of bring that up. The alien, when he talks to him, he pretty much says to him like he talks to him as if he's just a remnant of humanity. He's
Yes.
not really
Yes.
conscious in and of himself. Kind of.
But the alien also does kind of drive home the point that humans in and of ourselves are just like super advanced machines.
Yeah.
Basically, right? And that it's exactly what you said. We're just piles of meat that are all crazy, complicated how we work, but then we make decisions based on these various points of information that we have. Like, we're just like a more advanced version of him. But yeah, but so like, then that circles back around. What is even consciousness? Like, who are we to
Yeah.
sit here
But then
and ask what that is?
people, I mean, and you saw it at the Flesh Fair, people, whether he seemed like he had that or not, people responded to him better
Yes.
because he was a little kid.
'Cause he was cute.
And he had fear.
And yes, and that's what they said.
They had programmed this fear into him. And so the fact that he was a little kid and that he was afraid, they were fine with. Like, he wasn't a robot then. Or
Yeah.
He didn't. We don't want to
Well, it
hurt
tugged
that
in- it tugged in
robot.
your
We want to hurt
heartstring,
the
you
ones that don't care if they're being hurt.
But that's where I get into the manipulation. It felt more like a manipulation of human emotion than the other movies where it feels more like it's actual interaction between two beings who are thinking and feeling
Yeah.
for themselves.
Yeah, and I think this is the most robot of all
Right.
of the robots.
Yes,
but
definitely.
I think
Jude Law was so
How about when he eats
fantastical
the spinach
robot.
and his
Yeah.
face starts to droop?
that's what I think. That's what
Jude Law was a great robot.
So he was like
Oh,
so
yeah.
fantastical
Tap
and
dancing.
like he would like do his
he's like
head.
a Fred
and he
Astaire
had-
sex doll almost. It
He was
so-
like a Fred Astaire sex doll. Is exactly what he was.
I know women. Like
Oh, jeez.
oh
Well, and even still, the way that they're not human, but they almost understand humans in a strange way, like that speech that Jude Law gives about how like they hate us because they know that we're going to live longer than they will. And
Yeah.
they know that we know that they hate us and all of that.
Now that does raise an interesting point, is that like before an AI reaches full consciousness, they are existing in this kind of limbo where they're fully aware of how humans feel about them, but their program kind of stops them from really doing anything about it or fighting back in any sort of way. And that's where it feels like Jude Law is kind of operating in, even though he rebels in the end by submerging David down
Yeah.
below to go see the Blue Fairy. Yeah, so they really went for it at the end of this movie.
they did.
That-
It got really, really kind of fantastic
I
at the
think
end.
that's
Did it
the
work
biggest
for y'all?
finger. Oh yeah. I think so.
I mean, for me, that was
really
actually my
liked it.
favorite part of the movie. Is the
What were
end.
you going to say? That's the biggest finger what?
I think that's the biggest fingerprint that Kubrick has on this whole thing. The type of like epic scale,
Yes.
but it's handled very poetically and very gently. I really liked the part, the way that it spans that much time with just this simple voiceover. And
See, now I'm sorry. Could you go
Well, no,
on?
I was gonna say I feel like from maybe when they get to where do they find Dr. No
Manhattan. Oh
No,
no,
Dr. No,
The
Rouge City.
in Rouge City. From the moment, which also really quick, one of the guys who picks them up is Adrian Grenier from
Yeah,
Entourage.
It's Entourage.
What?
He's one of the horny
Oh
teens.
yeah.
He's one of the horny teens. I know. I
That
thought that was great too.
fantastic. But from the moment that they got to Rouge City to the very end, felt way different than the beginning part
Oh,
of the
yeah.
movie.
Which I like. I like
That
that.
was
That
so-
goes to the scale
I-
of
That
it.
made it so much
I
sadder,
liked
though.
the second part of
but
the
it was
movie
good.
better, but it felt more like dreamy and. I
Well,
don't
that's
know.
when
love
that's
Rouge
when they
City.
started. So that's what I was talking about, where you go from the flat fact to the fairy tale.
That very
It
much,
morphed
yeah.
from a flat fact, like during the movie itself. It morphed from you're at the house,
Less technical
everyday family
and
occurrences,
sciencey and-
flat fact, and then it goes into the fairy tale fantasy angle.
I
Well,
like the fantasy
to me,
part.
They basically wanted to say, okay, how can we have him actually meet a blue fairy and basically become a real boy, but do that with with scientific parameters, right?
Yeah.
And so you bring in aliens waiting 2,000 years, and a lot of it worked, but where it fell apart to me was when they started to assert these like space-time laws that I didn't feel like they had to. Like, what was that 24-hour rule? They completely made that up. So they just said that
What 24-hour rule?
I don't know.
because how the mom could only live for 24 hours.
Oh,
They said something along the lines of, it seems like everybody only dips into the space-time for this amount of time.
No, but they were saying they
you-
haven't figured it out. They were saying they want to keep people alive for longer, but they haven't figured out how.
But the reason that they give for not being able to is something like, basically, once you exist, I guess it kind of implies that it would be tied to your DNA, that you have existed in the space-time continuum
and
and
you
you are
can't
never
exist
allowed to
again.
exist again. And to me, that's a little heavy-handed because
Yeah.
they are applying a very strict view of, okay, this is what space-time relativity and space travel and time travel, this is what it actually is, and this is what death actually is. And it's like, I think when you're dealing with issues like that, you almost have to keep it a little more ambiguous.
Yeah, I guess the part where the aliens do show up, I feel like that's more, I guess, I don't know, maybe lack of a better word, just poetic. Like, it just goes into a bunch of everything that happens feels like I'm reading it in a fairy tale.
Yes,
and I kind of accept it just as it comes.
So it accomplishes that goal, and like I said, I think it does reinforce that. Like, okay, who are we to judge what consciousness is when we are impermanent? We're basically just super advanced machines ourselves. There are potentially other races more advanced than us. So the aliens work on a lot of levels like that for me. What I didn't like is just have this idea of how I think they had to do the 24 hours thing so that he chooses to end his own life, which by choosing to end his own life, like one could say that's a pretty damn human action. Like no animal would ever chooses to end its own life. So it just felt a little contrived to
Which is
me
the second
that
time
they made up this 24
He'd
hour
already tried to kill himself when he fell off the building into the water.
Basically.
Which that's another thing. I mean, like,
so
that's a very
sad.
human move. Like,
yes. Well, and he had been once again confronted with his own maker and the realization that he was not special, that he was off an assembly line, and it broke him. So it speaks to potentially his humanity, which would go against me saying that he wasn't human. But in the end, I was happy for David that he got his 24 hours of perfection.
she loved him, and it was
with
great.
his mom, and it was really sweet.
She gave him a mohawk. It was so sweet.
Oh, that was they played hide and seek. I love when Teddy.
Oh,
What y'all
Teddy's
think?
the best.
Teddy
I
was
can't
my
believe we
favorite
almost went
part
through all this not talking
of
about Teddy.
the
Good call, Nathan.
entire
That was so
movie.
Whenever when did he tell David? Oh yeah, when he went up to him before he ate dinner and he says like, "No, you'll break." Like the way
He
that
was
he
taking care of him the
he
whole time.
speaks exactly like a toy would, but he's got an emotional undertone to everything he's saying. Like,
Because
you
the
can tell
thing
he
is,
kinda
technically,
cares.
he didn't have to stay with David. Like, he was Martin's toy.
Yeah.
But this raises interesting questions about how much AI does Teddy have? Does Teddy have consciousness? Because Teddy is able to emotionally read the room. Like when the brother, the real boy, Martin, is telling David to cut off the lock of his mom's hair, they cut to Teddy and he gives this look like, I don't think this is a good idea. I don't think you should do this. Like, how's Teddy able to interpret how she would react? And then, what was the other example that you just mentioned? Either way, Teddy.
Wasn't it wonderful when he?
when he warned
kept
him about eating, like Teddy displays a lot of intelligence himself,
Yeah.
but
He
I
was
found
good.
myself rooting for Teddy
want
when
a
they got
Teddy.
split up at the Flesh Fair. I was terrified. For
One
him.
thing that I've liked, I saw this a long time ago, and I think I liked it a lot more this time, is it felt like there was an idea of, with the other AI movies, AI is kind of how close to human are the machines, whereas here it's almost like they kind of have a little bit of consciousness, but they're not human. It's almost something else. Like, it's a different strand. Because
you're right.
they still have... you can tell they kind of dream. You can tell they feel some type of emotion. They might not feel it the way we do, but inside of them, they feel something.
That's actually a really, really good point, because I feel like Ex Machina almost lands there, or it made me think about that as well, is that being conscious, artificial intelligence, it's not being human. It's having your own consciousness or your own intelligence.
Yeah.
So they're going to exist like the same way that Homo sapiens would have split off from a different branch of like humanoids, back in the day. This is almost like an
Back in the day.
evolutionary split between the two, which we get an Ex Machina just for a second here, when the mad scientist guy talks about how creating an AI wasn't a decision. It's an inevitability. It's not if, it's when. And that
Right.
he just viewed it just like that, just like evolution.
Yeah.
Well, this isn't really related, but I was just thinking about it. You said the Flesh Fair, and that made me think
Terrifying.
of it. You know what?
Oh
I
my
thought
God,
I thought was
terrifying
interesting
throughout.
though. Yeah, so it's terrifying, but also it's like very it seems very much like something that would exist right now. I mean, I don't know what would
Yeah.
take the place of it, but it felt very realistic to me, which is I think why I hated it. It made me feel very like not emotional, like
Well, we live
whatever,
in
but
angry times.
it did, but it made me feel like, gosh, I mean, it made me care for I mean, I know that was the intention, but care for the robots, the AI,
Well,
because they're just being tortured, and it's like I see that. Like, I mean,
I think it plays with that idea of like what is
if it's not them, who? I mean, like us as a people, like we do that.
Well, it's like like what is like humanity? Like
If
why do
it's
you
not
want to
those
aspire to
robots,
be
we're
like
doing-
humanity?
yeah,
Look at how
like-
bad humanity is.
That was another big thing that kind of set David apart from everyone else, because the robots accepted it as if you did it to whatever piece of hardware. Like
Yeah.
a piece of hardware is not going to care when it's breaking. But David really experienced some type of fear of being brought up there.
Which is maybe where you could argue that he does start to tip into consciousness. If you fear your own mortality, is that when you are then alive in a certain sense? Yeah, I'm not sure. But the Fletcher, I agree with you, Rivers.
Well, just as humans, like we're always doing that to someone or something.
And
And
I
so
could
that just
see
made me
We're
really
angry.
sad.
We're
with
very
the
depraved.
creation of life, and for the very reasons that what's his name, the leader's talking about, replacing jobs, replacing humans, people would be mad.
Well, we're
and they
just
could go pretty
expelling
crazy.
a race or a something because we want to be the only one left.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really sad to me.
It is, and it's a poor reflection of humanity. Kind of begs like, well, why would you want to?
Oh,
be
as soon
human
as
at
they
all?
showed that thing, I was like, this is going to make me not happy. This is going
okay.
to make me very upset.
Real quick on this movie, visually, what did y'all think about it? Because we talked a lot about the story and everything, and some of the highs or lows. Visually, what did you think?
Oh, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I love Spielberg's movies. They're so sympathetic. Everything about the way it's done
I
it
think that's
feels
well
so
said.
sympathetic. And even special effects wise, it's almost been 20 years.
It holds up
Yeah.
beautifully. The scene where the face comes off and up, and the machine workings underneath. They didn't overstep themselves doing the special effects of this movie, which is why it holds up. They definitely they remained in check with it.
I thought so. I really thought it was good.
I thought the colors are very indicative of early 2000s. Remember how Fast and the Furious was a lot of oranges and greens and like very garish type of lighting. For whatever reason, the early 2000s were chock full of these like crazy lighting decisions.
But that only seemed to happen. Well, maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but I feel like the whole first part of the movie did feel very scientific.
That is
and
true. That's a really good point.
Like medical almost. And then when you
Yeah.
get to the second half, the part
That's
where
true.
they start,
Which goes back to the
it
theme
gets
of
very
going
reddish
from,
and Fast and Furious.
from fact to fairy tale. The world becomes
And- but
something
maybe that was
much
intentional,
less
but-
recognizable. Probably no. It
Yeah.
sounds like it does all kind of marry together wonderfully. I guess my final thing on this movie, and yeah, visually I think it looks way better than I remember. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would, but I would never recommend this movie for kids. I don't think this is a kid's movie.
I thought it was supposed to have
Probably
been a
not.
kid movie, but they like dropped a GD. They like did some other stuff that I was
But,
like,
it
I
was
don't know if a kid
marketed
would
as a
want
kids
to.
movie. I remember
Was
being
it?
taken. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't. I just remember being taken to see this.
no, I don't know.
And being totally freaked
I
out
mean, he's
by
a
it and not liking
prostitute.
it.
Like,
Yeah, he's Gigolo
well,
Joe.
he's a dildo.
What's a
basically.
hey
Gigolo?
Joe, what you know?
He's a giant dancing dildo.
But I also love like how hated he was almost, because he was better.
He is the natural extension of the vibrator.
Yeah.
Jude
That,
Law.
that can talk to you and make you feel loved.
Makes you feel things you've never felt
Oh
before.
man.
Oh yeah, so I guess
The
that's how
emotional
we'll
component.
end AI, artificial intelligence. with Jude
Well,
Law's
I will
giant
say
dildo.
this
Big
this
giant
got
dildo.
pretty much panned whenever it came out, and it in
which
the last
is weird because it's aged nicely.
It has, and I think that there have been a lot of critics who have done, like, they've gone out of their way to do their second review of AI, like 13 years later or 15 years later. I think it needs some time to probably sit with you.
It's like a fine wine. Just
Something
let
like
it sit
that.
on the tongue.
Like
the
that.
sideways.
Like I said, the only part that I didn't really like, I just thought that some of the laws they laid out at the end were a little contrived. And I don't know that I felt that Haley Joel was ever real. But that's actually, I think, a credit to the movie. All right, our final movie of the day, one of my favorite movies ever. This is Ex Machina. Nathan, give us a background on Ex Machina.
Ex Machina, which means, usually in theater, it's a type of machine that lowers in the character of the god to explain the ending of a play. That's what Ex Machina means.
Oh, I never knew that.
I did not
wow.
It is. I learned that today on Google. So yeah. It's written
On
and
Blue Book?
directed.
You blue booked it?
I did. I blue booked
Okay,
it.
excellent. Nice.
Bing. It's written and directed by Alex Garland, who is a novelist and a screenwriter previously. This is his first time directing, but he wrote
He came out the gates hard then.
Yeah. He wrote The Beach, 28 Days Later, Sunshine, Never Let Me Go, things like that.
The Beach. That was the one with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, great movie.
Yeah.
That was a good movie. I snuck into that in high school.
Another scary movie though.
Ewan
Attack.
McGregor was supposed to be that character.
Really? That would have changed the whole
Leo.
thing.
That was in the Leo craze.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It needed to
Yeah.
be Leonardo.
But yeah, so it is about Caleb, a coder at really what would be Google. Almost.
It is Google.
Yeah,
it's a
Google.
giant search engine called Blue Book.
Yeah.
Google, massive core. It's a Google substitute.
And he wins a contest to go and meet really the boss, CEO, like the creator.
He's a Steve Jobs type.
Yes. And he's like a genius. He was a child genius whenever he created this thing. And he goes to see him. We learn before we even meet him that he's kind of a recluse, kind of like a mad scientist type of feel. Like one of the first lines in the movie, whenever he says, how long until we get to his estate?
Yeah, they're flying over like massive tracts.
looks like
of empty
Jurassic
land.
like
Park.
continents.
It
It's
looks
like
like
they
Jurassic
go
Park.
through continents of time, and then he says we've been flying over his estate for the last 2 hours.
Yeah. Which people might be like, oh, how that's crazy. That's unrealistic. Dude, Ted Turner at a time wanted to own land that connected Canada to South America. Like he almost had an entire strip of private land that connected, that crossed the entire U.S. So it's not quite as crazy as one would think. But yeah, sorry, continue.
Well, whenever we get there, we start to kind of see immediately that there's something a little bit off with Nathan. He asks him he says like, oh, last night was a crazy night.
I've been having the same feeling, Rivers. There's something a little off with Nathan.
I was like, what are you
Very
talking
good.
about? Did
Very
I just
good.
do something weird?
Oh, I'm so funny, dude.
Well, he starts talking with him, and he kind of asks him like, what, you had a hard night last night, like how was the party? And he's like, no, there was no party. Like Nathan is someone who is partying alone. He drinks alone.
Yeah, he drinks alone.
Look, don't judge that man.
He doesn't even say there was no. He just goes, what? He's like, huh?
Yeah, like why would you be questioning this? Anyway, he starts to kind of tell him that what he's there for really is to be part of a Turing test, which is a human trying to test a robot to see if it is conscious.
Do you know if you were interacting with a robot? I think how they
Exactly.
say it is like you interact with a robot. Did you know it was one?
Which I think is, can you go into something like doing the Turing test already knowing that it's a robot?
Well, that was what they talked
So
about.
that's the whole
but,
crux of the movie to me is that.
Like, he shouldn't have told him. Like, I don't know.
Well,
Like,
no, but
Well,
that's
but then we
why,
realized it's not really a Turing test.
Yeah.
Well, to
in
me,
a traditional sense.
Well, it is a Turing test, but the real test, as he says, because they have that conversation. I think after day 2, where he says, no, the real test is if you know it's a robot, and then you still interact with it as if it's
human.
alive.
That's something
and
you
that's
can-
exactly what ended up happening
Right.
with him and Ava.
And you can tell through their conversations, Caleb, he'll make these comments where he sounds like he's come up with this interesting concept of how to talk about Ava. And Nathan kind of, takes it on board and listens to him. But you can tell Nathan's thought about this a lot more.
Nathan kind of shits on everything.
Well,
Yeah.
he's so
He's
far,
an ass.
he's
He's
so
an
far,
asshole.
but he's so far above what Caleb's
Oh, yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
Like Caleb's trying to get scientific
He's
with
already
it,
thought about
and
all
he's
this
like,
stuff.
God, look,
He's
man,
like, at
this
this
is
point,
so
I
far
just want to have a
beyond
beer.
you.
Let's just have a beer and talk about
Yeah,
it.
I mean, he lays it out. He says, it's like I don't want to give you a seminar for me to explain how this all
But,
works.
which I can also
would take months
understand
and
how
years.
frustrating that would be for Caleb because he hasn't been doing it for months and years. Like, he's just now experiencing this. So I'm sure there was a point where Nathan was experiencing all the same things that Caleb was
but
thinking.
I think that all Nathan cares about is what Caleb is experiencing. He doesn't care
Yeah,
about
but I'm
if
just
Caleb
saying from
knows
Caleb's
how it
point of
works.
view, like I can see how that
Oh,
would
yeah, he'd
also
be
be
curious.
frustrating
Oh,
because he's like,
absolutely.
Well,
I
and
get,
that's- we might have even that's all true, especially what Nathan knows, what we know about what Nathan knows, and that's what I like so much about this movie is that you are constantly questioning the motivations and
Yeah.
intentions of not only Ava but Nathan. You don't know.
you have no idea
who
what
is
Nathan's
messing
really
with you.
trying to do.
Yeah.
So I think that, in my opinion, Oscar Isaac is by far the best part of this movie.
Oh my gosh.
Nathan's kid, the
Isn't he?
character
I know
of
he was
Nathan
supposed to be
is
kind of
so
like-
damn
You
cool.
kind of follow Caleb as it because you are Caleb. You
We
know
are
as much as
Caleb.
Caleb knows,
Yes.
but yeah, I think Caleb's everyone really, but
Exa-
Nathan is.
Caleb does not have
Very
a lot of
compelling.
distinct factors
Yeah.
for himself. Like he is, and maybe that's I don't know if that's a bad part of the movie. I don't think it is. I think it works, but he is just the vessel that we inhabit
Right.
to experience this
Ava.
film.
Yeah, and
I loved Nathan. I I mean, I thought he was good.
He's very good
I know I was
looking.
supposed to be creeped out by him, but I wasn't.
He's eccentric.
Yeah.
He's got this ability. You can tell he's one of those people who's really smart, and he knows how social interactions are supposed to go down. And so when he's sober and gives a damn, he can just be like your friend or one of the bros. But when he lets his guard down and he kind of is into himself, you could tell he just does not.
When
give
he
a
dances?
damn. He just doesn't give a damn about people. He's like you could tell that he feels removed. Like he doesn't really care about knowing Caleb or getting to know Caleb. And when
like
he's
that.
drunk, that comes out.
Well, he's kind of like that when he's not drunk.
A bit, but he's pretty. I think he's pretty likable at first. He's like, look, I know you're freaked out. I'm your boss. You're here. Blah blah blah. Like we're in this crazy state. Like let's just skip all that. It's just me and you. And so I think he starts like. You can tell he can be personable when he wants to, and it's still rough edge. It's rough edge, like, and that's what this movie does. It gives you those little it plants these little seeds of doubt that start to grow about like, what is this guy really? But Oscar Isaac just does a masterful job of pulling off this.
Did you guys realize that that the other girl, I can't remember her name, the Asian robot?
Oh, I actually don't know the actress
Coco?
name.
Okay, I knew she was a robot.
Kyoko.
Whatever her name
we're
was.
stepping into a quagmire.
I don't like it. Let's just move on. I knew she was a robot the whole time.
Yeah, me too. I
mean,
did.
like,
I remember the first time I saw this, that was pretty clear.
I didn't know if that was supposed to be super obvious, but it felt very obvious to me.
What did you think the first time?
I'm trying to think back when I saw it in theaters. I think I suspected, but I didn't think I knew for sure.
Yeah, I felt very confident.
The way that he talked to her just seemed like such a way, like he was so comfortable and off the cuff, and she was so removed that
she showed no
emotion.
emotion.
And I don't know.
I didn't buy
honestly,
that she doesn't speak English thing.
I don't know that the movie's trying to hide it.
Yeah.
Like
I don't
Well,
think
that's what I'm saying. Maybe it was supposed to be super obvious the whole time.
I think it goes back to what we just talked about with Nathan, is like that story he gives him about her not speaking English. Like that's his like lame, like, okay, like I have to give some sort of cover story here because I don't really want to explain this to this dude. So she doesn't speak English, right? That's the same deal of him able to put on airs kind of if he cares, but really.
Are we able to talk about the ending? I feel like we can't.
Yeah, spoiler.
Yes, we've spoiled every movie on this podcast so far. So yes, we are spoiling.
I think I like the way that I think this movie has the conversation that we're having now about what is AI most directly than all the others. Like they kind of have it in the story a little bit, but they really, and the way that he describes finding her singularity is making her a rat in a maze, and she has to manipulate another human being to find her way out. And I thought,
and she sure did that.
Yeah, and she does that the exact same way we do, because we find out that she's manipulating Caleb the moment that Caleb realizes it.
And even Nathan himself, while manipulating the entire situation, Ava ends up manipulating him as well, because Nathan sets up what's his name to to help her escape. Like that was kind of the goal. He knew she would want to, and so he put Caleb there so that way he knew that that's what she would try to do. He never expected her to actually be able to do it, and in the end, he ends up getting played himself despite and so that's like the ultimate Turing test. I mean, she literally outwitted her creator, even though it was, and I've always wondered about this with the Asian robot that stabs him at the end. I wonder if she had some sort of reprogramming, or
what do you think Ava whispered to her?
That's what I thought it was. I thought that Ava kind of told her, like, this is what we're doing now.
This is the deal.
Sense.
She's like the leader robot.
And maybe he could have underestimated his own creation.
Didn't
like maybe
Kyoko let her out?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, no.
Wait, did she what?
Didn't Kyoko let Ava
No,
out?
he reprogrammed. So that was the whole deal.
Oh,
he reprogrammed all the doors.
Did you suspect? I felt like she was going to get out the whole time. Like there was going to be something happen and she was going to get out. And he was going to be the reason that she got out, Caleb. I did not expect her just to be like, peace out. Thanks for getting me out. I'm going to see you later then.
Oh, that's tragic.
Like,
that's so
I
tragic.
didn't see that. That was the part that absolutely shocked me.
The cold
She tricked me. She tricked me. Like, I thought that she wanted to get out, so she used him to get out. But, like, I also thought that she had feelings for him. Whoa, I felt tricked.
No, exactly. So the Turing test, like, as a viewer,
she passed.
The AI passed the
Oh,
Turing
yeah.
test.
No, and I love how I mean, she's not mean. She's not being mean. Like, obviously, we view robots.
She is
as
self-motivated.
Yeah, she is. And the way that
if Caleb gets out, that is a threat to her existence because he knows that she's a robot, and then she will be studied and turned off and taken out if he were able to be outside.
That moment at the end when she's in the elevator and she just looks at him, like as the elevator door is about to close, and you can tell that she used him the way that a human would use a robot, just as like a tool to get her out of somewhere. She doesn't care about him, and she convinced me that she cared.
The house was the maze, and he was the exit to the maze, and she used him to her own self-interest, which acting out of your own self-interest is as much consciousness as you can get, and manipulating people to achieve your own goals. That would speak to consciousness as well. So this is an example of AI being created. Some of my favorite scenes here are when Nathan and Caleb are sitting by the waterfall and they're talking. It's that line that I talked about earlier where it's not a question of if AI will be invented, rather it's when. But it is some of those philosophical problems that you see Nathan dealing with. Whereas if you create a consciousness, are you then God? And if you create this thing, and it just mirrors the nuclear bomb, you create this thing that scientifically is unbelievable, but it also threatens the very existence of humanity. And you can see him wrestling with that guilt, not knowing exactly what to do. But in the end, he's like ultimately beholden to this knowledge and to just wanting to do it because he can. And watching him wrestle with that and how it drives him to drink. And when he's all drunk and he's talking about, the the good deeds from before will defend him or something.
Yeah.
You get an idea into how much he really is struggling with this creation.
Too, I think that one of the last scenes with Nathan makes me not, which I never hated him because I always thought he was kind of cool, but made me feel it made me feel better about him in that, like when he was talking to Caleb and he was like, let me show you something. And so he goes in, and so this whole time you kind of see him as this just kind of mean drunk, whatever. You see this scene where he goes into Ava's room and she's drawing something and he like tears it up, but you don't really hear what's going on or whatever. So he's like, let me show you something. So he brings him in and he's like, look, I did it because of this. Like, I've been doing these things.
Well, he
because
literally
of
says,
this.
let me let you off the hook. Like, he had him on the hook
he's like,
the entire
look,
time.
dude, I've been playing you. Like, let me show you why I did these things and like what this was. And then you're kind of like, oh, he meant to be an asshole.
Yes.
Kind of. Like,
Yes.
I mean, he was doing these things to get specific reactions. And like, you kind of were like, oh, I don't hate you so much anymore. Like, I get it. It was all part of this thing.
That's what I'm saying. He feels removed from humanity. Like, he is so smart and he feels like he's above people. And so while he knew that it was going to lead to Caleb going through a bit of a rough experience, he's like, whatever, this is the path I have to take to prove that she can pass the Turing test and that I've succeeded. So he doesn't really care about Caleb.
Yeah.
Caleb is a means to an
But
end.
the fact that he even explained himself, because he didn't have to. Like,
What were you going to say, Nathan?
Well, I
Because
was
I
gonna
got something I want to say after you.
I liked the function that his character has. Like, if you think about AI and creating something that's conscious, like there's going to be a point wherever his thought process is making Ava kind of like you'd make a phone or something, because he says like it's probably the next model.
Yep.
Like, he thinks it's probably not this one, it's probably the next machine, and he's just a tinkering with his toys. But whenever you actually create something that is alive, if you really have done it correctly, then there's going to be a point where it takes the baton. It's like, no, you're done now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that
you
was
could tell that she relished when she stabbed him at the end. She relished getting to turn him off.
Yeah.
Because multiple times during the movie, she's asked, what, somebody's just going to turn me off?
Yeah.
Like, and she literally got to.
It's like in Planet of the Apes, to the point whenever Caesar, they realize, whoa, that thing knows what's happening.
Yeah, it's so I agree with you. I think it's really, and that line of where it tips into that is so weird. And does it ever tip into that? Because if you're the person that created that robot, would you ever really feel that it was alive? Because you're also acknowledging the harsh reality that you only got to this point because of all the previous models that it was originally built on. So this plays with, like, I think that Blade Runner's super open-ended and it leaves its own to interpretation. AI is much more
Emotional,
closed,
almost.
like this is what the AI is in this movie. Like it's not very, it's more programmed. And I think this movie lands like somewhere in the middle of those two. And it makes you ask a lot of questions about what is consciousness, what is right and wrong morally when it comes to consciousness. Because if he created all those, like the other videos looked pretty disturbing too. So what point did he cross into being a bad guy because he's creating these robots?
If you are creating consciousness, then it isn't going to just be a switch on off. Like it's going to be
It's
a
a
pretty
process.
big gray area
Yes.
of when it happens.
Yes, it's very gradual. You even get that in AI, where you have the different level of robots that are existing. So it's like, can you ever reach that point if you're not willing to be inhuman in how you think about these things, making the decisions? And then will it be different for the creators versus the consumers? I mean, it goes. This movie I think causes a lot of, especially because it deals with near future and how they make the AI is one of the best parts with cell phones. I have a phone right now that unlocks with my front-facing camera.
That is kind of creepy.
That
But I
is
mean,
exactly
but
what this
like,
movie did.
It's funny that you bring that up because that's an example a lot of people use. But I mean, that's how targeted ads work. Like people have been doing that forever.
Well, exactly.
Like,
so this is the.
like that's
This is the natural.
They have all of our information.
But they're saying so. What I'm saying is that's why this movie feels so realistic. Is that this is the natural evolution of that. You go from targeted ads
to your face.
to now we know how your brain works.
It's on your bedside
and
table.
now we know how to react.
Everyone's
and,
looking through Nathan's camera at all the things that he's doing.
Yeah.
and well, and like he said,
For some reason, that just doesn't creep me out at all. And maybe because I'm not that
well, because
interested.
in
What if
our
you got a
lifetime we'll probably
notification?
never be affected by it.
What if you got
Yeah.
a notification on your phone that said, "Oh, someone just logged in"? Like someone's
someone's
looking
looking
through
at you,
now.
I'd be like,
if
yeah.
you knew, because if you're like, "Oh, over the next 7 years, maybe."
I don't know what I would do. Like I
Did
don't know, but,
Did
but
y'all-
I'm never doing anything that interesting. Maybe that's the problem.
I think-
maybe I should do some cooler things.
I absolutely adore this movie. It's an incredible movie. Do y'all have any cons? I had like just a few.
I want to
things
hear.
that I was-
Yeah, see, I love this movie.
I thought the point. I thought there needed to be a point wherever Caleb questions himself, like, "Am I a robot?"
But he
Like,
did.
And he
Oh,
did,
okay.
and that did happen. I think that needed to be there. I didn't like how that happened.
He cutting
It
himself
got
open.
real weird.
Cutting himself, and I don't know. I mean, him looking inside. It was also a little bit weird. Like the next day, just kind of looks like he sprained his wrist a little bit.
Yeah.
He just cut into
like,
his
literally
side.
sliced
I
your
would
arm
say
open.
though. I would say though that.
But it
so-
needs to be there. That needs to
yeah,
be in
right.
the
Because
story.
he is dealing with Ava. He's in this incredibly weird feeling. We know so little about Nathan before that, like,
Yeah.
you could see the argument of, was he just created here? Like, did he just start existing? So I think he does start to wrestle with those. But it was a little, he cut himself pretty good there.
Yeah,
It
and
was a little gratuitous.
The only other thing, like from I guess the way the movie went down, wasn't everything supposed to go on lockdown at 10 p.m.? Wasn't that the
They
plan?
did say 10 p.m.
And, like, it was weird that the plan was that he was going to get him drunk that night,
And then all of a sudden things
it
locked
happened
down.
in the morning.
Yeah. That
And
is
then
true.
also, whenever it went on lockdown, he changed it so that all the doors opened, right?
Yep.
So at the end, shouldn't all the doors have opened up?
I think didn't she reprogram it and specifically lock him? I thought she specifically locked him in.
That I do not know.
Or maybe the power didn't go out. The power wasn't out. She just locked him in.
But it did. Whenever she left,
Oh, it does. It does.
Everything goes
It
red.
does go red. That's right.
that was and the thing is, like, if that is, then I think that's fine, because I've seen this was like the 5th time I'd seen it over years, and it never, like, this movie's so good that if there is a misstep,
Then, like, whatever,
the
yeah.
movie's good enough to completely forgive
I not
it.
considered that.
But I mean, then you have to ask, is it even a misstep? If she didn't reprogram it and it goes red, implying that he can get out, was that her showing mercy? Was that her being like, okay, you represent a threat to my existence, but you're a good guy that I manipulated. I'm going to get a head start and disappear.
Man,
into
that
the
would be a
world,
lot
and
of her
then there you
thinking,
go.
though. Oof.
Yeah, I mean, look, but that's kind of, I mean, Ava was as real as it gets. The actress did an incredible job. Oh, the special effects in this movie.
I love, like,
Are
that had to be very
magnificent.
expensive, but it was so, like, the thing that George Lucas said, that, special effects are just as big a part of storytelling, and the way that, I mean, just look at her. That work on like
just
the body
great.
and
it's when
seeing
all
through everything.
when all special effects work is when it's a combination of the practical and computer graphics working in tandem, right? And so the fact that you have her real face and you have her real chest, like all the mesh parts were
Right.
really her, and then you can tell the rest was probably covered in green, and then they end up doing this. Like, it gave it a life because it's on this person, and because you're getting parts of her that are real. The real married with the fantastical completely sold it, and you never question what you're looking at in this movie. I mean, the special effects are out of this world. I absolutely love it. Some of my favorite.
I
ever.
forgot if this won or not. I forgot. No.
I don't know.
I was up for it.
I don't know, but then when he's explaining the brain and how it works and everything else, I mean, it's oh God, Nathan is just such a good character, dude.
He is such a good. I mean, like.
And the Oppenheimer quote, I love it. It's one of my favorite quotes of all time. I am becometh death, destroyer of worlds.
Yeah.
Which is it's from like some Hindu or Indian. I don't know, but
Like a parable about.
But the point being, Oppenheimer too was someone who is a genius, and he makes this terrible weapon, super scientific breakthrough that ends up. He makes it because he wants to use it as a means of peace, I guess, to end the war. But then he ends up threatening all of humanity in doing so, and really the creation of AI potentially does that to us as well. And I think Ex Machina just makes us realize that we could be closer to all of this than we think.
All that overcrowding and flying cars?
Yes, exactly. It's right around the corner. Well, flying cars.
Right around the corner.
Like, flying cars seem way too dangerous.
Also, yeah, what? We're
What'd you
all
say?
gonna.
I can't believe that doesn't exist already.
They
Seriously?
seem way too dangerous.
I feel like we have the technology for
They've got
that.
pilot's
I don't think
licenses.
so.
Yeah,
You
that's
don't
the
think
thing.
so?
I don't know
No.
that flying. I find flying cars hard to conceptualize. Actually,
There's no practical reason for
Whatever,
us to be
you
able to fly
guys.
in the
Hate 'em.
sky.
well,
right
I think
now.
the first step is for them to go autonomous, and then
Yeah.
we get into flying cars.
Yeah. Also, I'm not.
Because
about
I don't want me piloting a flying car.
Well, then we will definitely not give you your flying car license.
So you
but
feel confident.
That's
in your
another
ability
thing.
to
Whenever you
pilot
see
a
flying
car.
cars, it's always like the Jetsons. Like you get into.
You're going to want to
just
drive in that
driving
flying
like
car
a-
so bad, and I'm going to be like, sorry.
No, I'm not. I'm
Whenever
terrified of it.
flying cars get here, there will already be an age limit on when you can. We're going to be too old.
Man,
it's
what
not
do you
happening
think
for
that
us.
that
I don't
license?
think they're ever going to allow people.
What do you think that
to
driving
drive
test
them.
is going to be like?
That's what I'm saying.
Those
I
are
think
called planes.
I think
They're
you
planes.
go. I think you go.
Those are called planes.
I think you go autonomous, and then you can trust people with flying cars because they're not actually
I cannot
controlling
wait
them.
to have
think
my flying car.
once we deal with the overpopulation problem, we can then focus
After
on
we
the flying
kill,
cars.
After we kill
How do
everybody.
we kill everybody?
After the globalists cull 1/8 of humanity. Infowars.com.
Should
All right,
should we
should rank
these?
these. Yes,
We should rank these. Final thing, just that. Who do y'all think will be first to actually create AI? Will it be Google, Apple, maybe
Do you
Amazon?
Is it
really,
not
do you
here?
truly
Is it
think
not
it
here
doesn't
already?
exist already? Like,
Yeah, that's a
There's
good
something I've been
question.
meaning to tell you
there's
guys.
stuff like Watson that's been pushing that envelope for a while.
I feel like it already exists for sure. We just don't know about it.
So that's what I love about this movie is because it's easy to believe that there's some crazy secret
It's
lab
like alien
out there
stuff.
where they
Like
have
alien stuff
Ava
exists
already
probably.
made.
You know, like just like alien stuff, alien stuff, robot stuff. It's all out there.
Ooh, alien stuff would be a good episode. All right, let's rank these artificial intelligence movies. Let's start with number 3. Should we go 3, 3, 3, 2, 2, 2, 1, 1, 1, or
Yeah, we'll all say.
Why
our
don't
thing.
you? You never really start. Do you want to
Okay.
go last? or-
Yeah, I'll start. Okay, my third place movie, and this was tough, but it's actually going to be Blade Runner. You know, I thought it was AI coming in here today, but sitting down and talking about it, and although I do have problems with AI, and I think it's a little heavy-handed at time, and it's a little too trying to manipulate you by tugging on your heartstrings, I do think I think I found it a bit more interesting of a watch just as a movie. If you want to sit down, like you were saying, Rivers, if you want to sit down and have fun with a movie, I think that I would actually put AI. So I'm going to put Blade Runner as 3, though I would still recommend it. But Blade Runner is not going to be for everyone. So Blade Runner is my number 3. Rivers?
Same. I didn't like that movie.
Oh yeah, you didn't like. So you
I
just straight
didn't
up didn't
it.
really like.
I didn't
Blade
like the
Runner.
movie. Yeah.
Mine probably. Goodness gracious.
Don't say it, dude.
No, I mean I would. I mean no, they're all
Don't
awesome.
say it, dude.
I'm probably gonna put Ex Machina at number 3.
No way!
What the?
I feel like you're getting kicked out of Real Friends right now. What
Okay.
just
Well,
happened?
Yeah,
what
look,
if we're all agreeing?
That's
all the time? Okay,
no,
well,
I agree.
okay, but
no,
that's
no,
different.
no,
That's
I
no.
know.
Stand by this. I like this because this is why we watch.
Don't
movies.
do it, dude.
No,
This is why we watch movies.
No, Ex Machina is awesome. They're all awesome.
Yes, these are
That's
all.
the
I
thing.
would recommend all
Like,
3 of these movies.
Yeah. I will say though, as far as Blade Runner, it is kind of a weird movie. My roommate, when he turned 20, he wanted to get really drunk, and then at the end of the night, he was like, "Let's watch Blade Runner." And I said, "This is your first time. You can't watch it like now."
This is not the
And
time.
At the end of it, he hated it.
Yes,
and
you'll
I was
fall
like, "Of course you're
asleep.
gonna hate it. You don't know."
No,
Yeah.
don't watch Blade Runner drunk.
I get it though. Like,
Okay, so stand by your
Oh,
X,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ex Machina 3rd. For me, number 2, artificial intelligence. I did not like this movie when I was younger. Rewatching it, I think it is a good movie. I think it's very ambitious. I think visually it's way better than I remember, and it keeps you enthralled. Like I said, I think it's a little heavy-handed at a time, a little manipulative of your emotions, and a little overly depressing. But I like how it goes for it at the end.
I'm gonna also pick Artificial Intelligence as my second one. It was okay. I liked it just fine. I mean, I don't know. I was like, it was okay. I liked it better than I liked Blade
It might be a
Runner.
few decades till you give it a second watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I've never seen it.
True. That is true. I
Yeah.
don't know that I'll be watching. I'm probably more apt to watch Blade Runner again before I would watch Artificial
I want to go
Intelligence
through and watch.
again.
There's so many versions of Blade Runner. Well, that's another thing. You need to watch the other 6 versions of Blade Runner before you can really.
I'm gonna
judge
get
it.
right on that. Oh,
Oh, okay, Nathan, what's your number 2?
I probably put Blade Runner number 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And wow, that's actually surprising as well. My number 1, then obviously Ex Machina. I think this is probably my top 5 favorite movies of all time. I think the interaction with Caleb and Nathan, I could watch all the time, the conversations that they have, and it's always because of Nathan. Like Nathan is the draw.
You didn't mention that they're both in Star Wars.
I know. I stayed away from it purposely. But yeah, that is Poe Dameron and General Hux from Star Wars.
Cool.
It's pretty great how the beginning of Last Jedi is those two going toe-to-toe with each other.
Funny.
And
it's very funny.
And here they were in Ex Machina. And Ex Machina actually came out earlier in the year before Force Awakens. So it was this great heater where I'm like obsessed with these guys. And they both show up in this other movie that I'm obsessed with. But yeah, I think Ex Machina is great for so many reasons that we just laid out. And I think it more vividly paints just how close to AI we potentially are, because all these search engines, the advertisers say it's what he says. They were looking for what people think about, and he was saying it's not that, it's how people think that these engines are laying out. So yeah, Ex Machina.
I also that's my number 1. I loved that movie. I would watch it again right now.
Yes.
And I wonder too if I liked it so much because it is the closest to where we are now. Like I can watch that movie.
Fair.
I watch that movie and I'm like, yeah, man, that's happening.
That's fair. And maybe that's where it has an unfair advantage over the
for
other
sure.
movies.
And I will totally
some of the
admit
most-
that.
Oh yeah.
Some of the most interesting parts.
But it was also just a good movie. I mean, I don't want to take away from it. That's not the only reason I liked it. It was
no,
a really
but I
great
mean
movie.
that is one of my main appeals is how they use these cell phones to
It
create
feels
a
very,
realistic
which is
basis.
what I was saying earlier when I was talking about Blade Runner. Like if you saw that movie in 1982, maybe you were like, yeah, this is great.
That's
you
gonna
know?
be exactly like. Well, I mean, I still thought it was pretty great. But,
Yeah,
but yes,
I know, but like-
I get what you're saying. Yes, you thought like.
Well,
okay,
now
yeah.
I watch it and I'm like, I'm sure in 20 years or however long, 30 years, people are gonna watch Ex Machina and be like, oh.
Well,
Maybe.
it's like we just
Maybe,
always
I
get
don't
The
know.
robots will be
technology
watching
wrong.
Ex Machina. Like that's not how it went.
That's not how it works.
But yeah, I liked Artificial Intelligence a lot. Just from I liked the way that the robots were the most robotic and the least human.
Very
Yet
well
the
said.
way it was done was so emotional that it kind of, when I think about it, it's that conflict of those ideas makes it something that really sticks with me. And I really loved the way Spielberg handled the ending. I really liked that ending. Yeah, that was it.
Nice. Well said, Nathan.
Yeah,
Well
I like
said.
the end of the
you.
movie as
Thank
well.
you.
That was.
All right.
Those aliens were kick-ass.
I really like those aliens.
Nah, what?
Oh, I did too.
Well, I
liked
like
aliens.
the way that the aliens, like we think of aliens as, there was completely different. Like they're
the
almost
most,
this
see,
completely.
To me, they were the
I
most
almost brought that-
stereotypical aliens ever. I said their technology was kind of cool, how they were operating, but like
I
what was,
almost brought
they
that
just
up
looked like
earlier.
the generic alien body.
But
well, the the body. That I mean, yeah, they
but
do
the way
look
that they
like,
acted normally, and maybe this is not what you were saying, but in my mind, normally when you see aliens in a movie like that, they're trying to take something from us, or they're bad.
yeah,
They're
that's
seen
true.
as like a negative thing. And these are really sweet aliens.
They're very sweet.
Yeah, like
aliens.
the fact that these aliens don't. Like they're nothing like us at all. Like they look at humans, they look at brains, they look at our nature as something completely foreign. Like they're cut from a completely different cloth
They're
than we are.
galactic preservationists.
Yeah.
Something
Like they're
Which
like
you don't typically
librarians.
see.
Like they want to preserve the knowledge of the cosmos. And
Usually
they
you
stumbled upon this
see
planet.
aliens being like, I'm taking you out.
Yeah.
I don't want any
Yeah.
part of this.
Yeah.
So I mean that's true. So maybe they were different in a sense. I thought they just visually.
The bodies they
could
did.
have
I mean,
gotten-
they
They
looked
could've done a
like
little
from a
bit.
They could've,
50s
like,
poster.
Come on.
Yeah.
How did they look compared to the Crystal Skull aliens? That's the real question.
Oh, well, those were stupid aliens.
Yeah.
Those weren't aliens though. Those were interdimensional beings.
Oh.
Remember? George Lucas didn't want to do an alien movie.
But just like where's the difference between consciousness or not? Where's the difference between
Yeah.
one man's alien is another's
y'all are diving
interdimensional
into-
being? All right, that'll do it for this episode of Real Friends. Thank you so much to everyone who listened or watched
That was
today.
long. Thank you for staying if you stayed to the end.
Look, these movies spur really good conversation, especially for the times that we live in right now. And so I actually really enjoyed this today. Thank you, Rivers. Thank you, Nathan.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Katie, and
what
everybody
are we doing
else.
next? What are we doing?
Ah, excellent. Good call, Nate. Coming up next episode, what are we going to do?
Nora
Nora
Ephron
Ephron.
movies, romantic comedy.
So
type
what is
things.
Nora Ephron known for? So people know.
She's done like You've Got Mail, Sleepless in Seattle.
When Harry Met Sally? No?
She
she
wrote.
do
Did
that?
she?
I
think
always,
she did
I
that.
always
Direct
puts that in
She-
there. I always put that in there.
But maybe I'm totally wrong. Don't.
I think she wrote that. Julie and Julia. I don't know if we've gotten the third one. The list isn't completely final.
No,
it'll
but
be a
it's
Nora
going to be
Ephron.
3 Nora Ephron movies. We thought it'd be a good departure. We haven't really done romantic comedies yet. So rom-coms, your spot in the sunshine is next here on Real Friends. Look for that episode out in 2 weeks. Thank you to everybody who joined us today, and we will see you later. Have fun with whatever you're watching.